Speed work works if you do. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would sit down and chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. So before we get started, if you guys will please click like down below, it'd be greatly appreciated. Please follow, please subscribe if you are not already, and leave me a comment down below about what you think. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get over to the topic of speed work. Always been a topic of controversy. And for years and years, I saw like Mike Tersher give rebuttals to it. And I've seen, even 10 years ago, there were people writing amazing rebuttals of like, look, Mike, you can say all this stuff that you want in this testing you did with Tendo units and everything for people training the way you train who don't do speed work, but people who train speed work and do it hard produce way higher forces when they do it. And it's like, people make this argument, well, powerlifting is not a speed strength sport, until you see Milinashev squat 1,000 pounds breaking records, and you're like, wow, that was like a 1 second rep. Looks like a speed strength sport to me, buddy. So you have that to factor in. So you have that, but then we go, but what about all the other sports? What about all the other sports? How about all these other sports to where it works? And that's the issue when people make these scathing claims. Well, speed work doesn't work. Even J.M. Blakely said it, but yet there were people out lifting him at Westside who did the speed work. You know, and that's the problem. It worked in powerlifting. And then it worked in other sports, and that's the issue. How many other sports incorporated dynamic effort work similar to what they did out of Westside, and they got faster and more powerful? I'm talking boxers, MMA fighters, sprinters, true speed strength sports. They get an enormous benefit. NFL players, Army Rangers. All right, all these people use this method and they get great results. And I get it. People say, well, correlation doesn't equal causation, except that here's the thing. People make the claim all the time. And yet when lifters are like, when I go do this lighter speed work, I do it and my lifts go up. I'm one of those that I step back and rationalize it many times and go, oh, you know, in theory it shouldn't work, yet I programmed it successfully for years and years and years and years for clients who hit enormous numbers. I did it and my numbers always went up. I'm back to doing it again because it works, and it works consistently if you push it hard enough. The only arguments we could have against it would be if you're not an ultra wide stance squatter and you're doing really wide stance boxes. We could make the case that may not carry over to your squat for technique purposes, but setting that aside, a narrower stance box or just taking the box out and doing pause squats against bands or chains absolutely works. And the other thing is, when you go back in, I saw even Tersher mention the Russian manuals, except that the problem when he was talking about that is the Russian manuals did note that 60 to 80% produces the highest force. So if your stuff is putting you right around there. So, I mean, a lot of times we'll do 50%. And I like 50% for straight weight for starting. But what about if your other stuff puts you right around 60 or 65 and you go explosively with the short breaks? You do get that high rate of force production. Now, you got guys like Winning who are making people insanely strong and explosive running even lower. Right? I've seen Winning run things where he's like 25% of your max plus 25% band or chains. That's really low, guys. That is really low. Yeah, what happens? People get stronger, they get faster. They get both. And then you have to factor in the technique work, and that's the other thing. So let's say you really do your version of it. Let's say you start doing pause squats with it. Not pause squats, but pause benches. All right, let's say you start doing your speed work setup like that. You do 10 triples on that. Okay, that is perfect technique carryover. Right? You pause it and explode as hard as you can, as violently as you can against the bands, the chains, whatever. You're setting up, you're doing your max bench technique. But the thing is, you're getting a bunch of first reps. You're getting tons of practice on first reps. And then the other thing we come to is, yeah, you're producing maximum force for the same duration as a max. So if you do the reps correctly, which usually triples on bench, doubles on squats and deadlifts, there is specificity to your big lifts because you're producing force for the same time you will on a max. Ooh, yeah. You're producing force for the same time you will on a 1 rep max when it's perfect. Okay? So 3 reps on the speed bench is about the time it'll take you to lock a bench, a max bench. You know, barring a really bad grinder, but that's what we want to avoid. But how do we get through the bad grinders? By doing max effort work with different movements to learn to grind through bad angles. Okay, so we're getting all this carryover, but that's the fascinating point. You know, that is also one of the reasons guys get so strong rotating lifts. Like I've done this with clients. Like one of my guys who weighed 175, when he hit a 505 squat, we took us 2.5 years of doing this. But he went from like a 440 to the 505, and we only did a normal back squat with a straight bar about once every 12 weeks. So it's like, how did he keep getting stronger? He had got a good mornings. We got the practice in with the speed squats over and over, and he just built muscles. But we did the other lifts to learn to power through. The same thing. He got really strong in good mornings so he could learn to power through at the top. Okay, we do the hypertrophy work to get started out of the bottom. Supplemental stuff like a good morning to learn to power through and grind at the top if it gets squirrely, and then the speed work ingrains our technique and power over and over and over and over. Because of the short breaks, the quick setup, you get really good at getting set up. Okay, so yes, it does have a speed component that will carry over to other sports. It also has the practice component that is specificity. You are practicing the first reps a lot. So I mean, 10 triples or 10 doubles is a lot of first reps. It's a lot of setups. You learn to find your perfect positions, and that's a point people forget, is that it lets you practice and find your groove. You learn where you're fastest. You learn exactly what bench grip, exactly what touch point gives you the most speed. You learn exactly what toe angle on your sumo or conventional deadlift gives you the most speed. You find your exact foot position on squats to where you feel the fastest and the most power and drive through, because of the sheer repetition. Because that stuff changes over time. People forget that. There's a sheer repetition involved with those things. And as your body structure changes, you gain muscle or gain or lose fat, those angles and leverages shift a little bit. So what this allows you to do is to practice finding your perfect setup, your perfect technique over and over and over, and then do it in a way that you recover from, right? You can recover from it really easy. So then you can do your heavy work and then do this on the next sessions. It absolutely works, and it works for the powerlifting. But that other point, it works for all these other sports. There's a reason it is so popular for everyone from Army Rangers now, all the way to the NFL, MMA, sprinters, Olympic sprinters, all these people. It is ubiquitous in the sports world and even now the tactical world like that. Okay, so when people try to make that claim, it doesn't work. I'm sorry, you're flat wrong. It works over and over and over, and some of the claims about the force production have been kind of debunked in the lab when it's tested in athletes who actually practice the speed work. Practice makes perfect, right? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.